Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities. I am a money mindset, dream big coach, and podcast host, Annie Ingersoll. Welcome to Passion, Purpose, and Possibilities. Hope everyone is doing well today. Friday the 13th. An awesome day. I love the 13. 13 is my lucky number. And I like Friday the 13th because of how lucky it is going to be. I know a lot of people say that it's unlucky and that, excuse me, there's a lot of superstition around that, and certainly not to downplay that, but I just find it lucky, and I've told myself that it's going to be my lucky day. The 13th is always my lucky day, but Friday the 13th is a really lucky day for me. So, and as always, today's episode is brought to you by IngersollEnterprises.com. So thank you for that, IngersollEnterprises.com. Always thankful for that, and a lot of great events going on there. Hey Justin, how are you? Things are going well. How are you doing? Love to hear about it in the chat. Where are you coming in from? What are you doing today? Post in the chat. What's the weather like? Sunny? Snowy? What's the weather like? What are your plans today? What are your plans for the rest of this month? I have a special guest today, and I might butcher it, so I apologize in advance a little bit. But Dr. Diana Mercado-Marmarosh. Please forgive me if I butchered it. Hopefully I said it pretty correctly. The family medicine physician, clinic medical director, and chief medical officer. She's also the founder of Overachieve Life Coaching. Ooh, I like that, overachieve. Prior to discovering coaching, she typically has 200 charts open and a graveyard of unfinished projects. Oh, I know all about that. The unfinished projects. Excuse me, but has changed, and now she's on a mission to empower physicians and healthcare professionals to create simple systems that supporting their zone of genius and reclaim their freedom of time. Awesome. Her clients learn to leave work at work. That's very important. Leave work at work, and we can talk about that more. That I'm excited for that. She's happily married with 2 kids, enjoys travel, painting, Zumba, yoga, meditation, and exploring different cultures. Ooh, exploring. So a lot of great things. And without further ado, let's bring on. How are you?
I am so excited to be here, and I'm so glad that you set the intention of today to be a very lucky day. Like you were talking about that people just say the 13th is an unlucky day, but how you set your intention for your day really makes a difference.
Absolutely. And in so many aspects, how your intention for your intention. If you just decide you're going to have a good attitude, and then it helps translate into a good attitude towards work, a good attitude towards chores, a good attitude towards bills, a good attitude towards the weather, whatever. So I love how you brought that up first thing, and 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 it's so important because then it rubs off on others. Like my
Exactly.
simple comment, it it didn't even occur to me at the moment when I said it that it would impact others. Just a lot of people think this, but 13 is my lucky number. I was born on the 13th. February 13th is my birthday, so 13 is my lucky number.
Right.
And it didn't even occur to me for a second, that you would go off of my comment on that. So you never know.
Yeah. No, I think people don't realize how our mind is just wired to always be thinking in the negative. And it's just human nature, right? Like we're want to survive, and so it's wired to think that way. But it's we human beings are the only species who are able to think about our thinking, and so there comes the choice and the possibility, and hence the intention of deciding on purpose how you want something to happen. And of course, life is going to happen, and it's sometimes we go through shit or the growing pains or whatever you want to call it, right? But it's how you then react to it that makes the world of difference. And like you said, the ripple effect of you on purpose deciding the 13th is my lucky day, today is going to be the best day, and then how you approach how things come at you makes a difference throughout the whole rest of the day and the weeks and the months, right? We're in January, so everybody is right now in the mindset, intention, goals, all that stuff, right? So but I always tell everybody, like, don't wait until tomorrow or someday, because someday is not a day on the calendar. You just have to start somewhere. But yeah, so thank you for having me, and I would love to contribute to your audience in any way possible.
So yeah, I love that, and you know, I've with that quote, "Someday is not a day on the calendar," and I've heard "someday is not a day in the week." And how often do we tell ourselves that? Oh, someday we'll do this. Someday life will be better. Someday I'll have this. But to your point, we get to think about what we think about and choose how we're programmed. We can rewire our brain to whatever we want it to be. Excuse me. And we can realize, and we can basically predict our future, if you will, or like I know I'm gonna say the wrong person, but was it Abraham Lincoln said that the best way to predict the future is to create it? So
Exactly.
so someday I'll be rich. Like, no, in 5 years I will have this amount of money. And when you start doing that and putting those thoughts out there, those phrases out there, and those beliefs, because you got to have the belief with the thought and the action, and you got to have all three, or um, then it'll happen. You know, someday I'll start a podcast. Then when I finally went to no, I'm going to start a podcast on this day. The guests started appearing. Um, my camera came into play. My microphone came into play. All these things lined up. You know what? So whatever that is for you, put a date on it, and then believe that you will achieve it.
Yeah, so you might not realize what you just said is very powerful. Belief in action, right? I'm just listening to a book right now, Audible. I don't like to sit down and read because I just don't have that type of time, but I drive back and forth, and you can easily use that time to grow your mind, to think about your purpose, your possibilities, right? And that can obviously fuel your passion, right? That's what we're talking about here today. But the book that I'm listening to, it's called The Miracle Equation, and it's by Hal Errold. And he basically is saying that you need to have like unquestionable faith, and then take massive action towards that faith that you are going to create whatever it is that you decide. And so whether it's to live a long life, whether it's to show up at your kid's basketball game, whether it's to leave your notes done at work and not have it spilled over into your life. And so the miracle equation basically says just that. You have to have that unquestionable belief, even though everybody else thinks that you might be crazy because you never done this or whatever. Like, you don't need to know the how, but you need to set the intention, and you need to know where you're going, because otherwise, how are you going to get there? You're going to drive endlessly, right, without ever getting to your destination, because you didn't even have a destination to begin with. And if you are not purposeful, what you're putting on your calendar, somebody else will put stuff on your calendar that was not even your stuff. And because of the way we are, we tend to say yes to things because we are trying to, not disappoint people. We end up people pleasing, and all of a sudden there's no boundaries. All of a sudden we're living somebody else's life, and you're like, how did I get here, right? And so for me, ADHD, realizing that I needed to stop ignoring my ADHD was that realization that I got to decide whatever I would make that diagnosis mean, and whether I would just sit there or I would use as an excuse, or I would get curious enough to try to understand it, to then create my systems so that it wouldn't affect me per se, but then I could perceive it as a gift, but a gift that I had to learn to unwrap, because if I ignored my timeline is, or if I ignored, um, that again, I wasn't setting boundaries because of people pleasing tendencies, because then I could get myself in trouble. And so that's how I then learned to be intentional with what I was thinking about myself and what I was thinking about my time. And then realizing that when I set some of these boundaries from a place of like, no, this is what's going to support me, then it would be the ripple effect, like that I would be better energized, that I will show up, instead of walking from room to room to room to room and not finishing the task before running to the next room. um, I realized that if I didn't do that, then I couldn't be fully present in the next room, that I needed to use my short-term memory, put down what I already told that patient, then go to the next room, and then be fully present with that patient, and then get to the next room, and then use tools like use a timer to tell me, hey, you can't talk to them for an hour. Although I want to, but you would you would hate for me to make you wait an hour. I had to be mindful that um, a timer would be a way for me to have an external time awareness and not judge it or make it mean anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Setting those boundaries and putting your own definition on things. Like you said, we're programmed to go automatically to that negativity, unfortunately, and a lot of people look at ADHD as something negative, but I just came up with a new definition for that. Awesomely defining her destiny.
Oh, I love it.
So or his destiny in my case, whatever. But put your own definition on it and use it as a tool, not a hindrance. Excuse me.
Yes.
And there's so many examples of ways we can do that and people that have done that and stuff, and you find more strength when you put those boundaries in place and those definitions, your definitions in place. Um, and you have more desire to work towards those things, because if if I followed the career path that my parents did, and they loved their career path and stuff, but it just wasn't for me. If I followed that to please them, I wouldn't put as much emphasis. I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't live a fulfilled life. I would have all my needs met and everything, but it wouldn't be me. And so even our close family and friends unknowingly imply some of those things on us, and we need to make sure we're making sure that aligns with who we are. And I took some of that knowledge and experience, and I'm very grateful for that helped shape me who I am, and I wouldn't trade a bit of it. And I'm proud of my history, my family, and everything. And also knowing that I can choose to be me. They chose who they were, and I can choose to be me. So I love that. And overachieve, I love that. Tell us a little bit more about overachieve life coaching.
Yeah. So, you know, I want to say people with ADHD, we tend to be, and it's a spectrum. So I don't want to speak for everybody, but we tend to be curious and we tend to be life learners. And because of that, sometimes we can have a graveyard of unfinished projects, but because then something else sparks our interest, right? So I was a teacher actually before I became a physician. And I thought, finally finishing being a physician, I thought I'm never going to go to school again. Like that was long enough for me. But what I discovered when I got diagnosed in my first year of med school, I got told, here's some pills. But I didn't get told, hey, there's some coaching out there, or maybe talk to a therapist to see how this impacted you. Like, I didn't get told there's other tools for ADHD. And actually, when I graduated and I became an attending or a doctor, like I got told, you should know better. You outgrow ADHD. And I stopped taking meds for like 10 years and I worked extra hard. And I thought working 20 to 30 hours outside of work was a small price, uncompensated, of course, because I didn't want to tell anybody how hard I was working. I thought it was a small price to pay to have the privilege to do what I love, which was to take care of my patients. And so you could imagine it was a love-hate relationship because I love talking to them, but then I had to do the boring part, which was like the charting and like all that stuff that came with it. And I was like, how come nobody was recording that? We just did amazing. Like we just had an amazing heart-to-heart conversation. Why are they not, doing that? And what I then came to realize when the pandemic what was happening was that mental health maybe had been um, ignored or brushed aside, probably because we were still in community and people were still helping you or helping each other to do the things that you don't like. But then all of a sudden, the COVID hits, and you really are kind of you in your own bubble because of safety issues and stuff. And it brought to surface that I was barely functioning, or I was maybe in the water, and I didn't even realize I was semi-drowning because this is what I experienced. I thought life was like to be a mom, to be a wife, to be a physician, and I didn't ever question it because I thought this is what it is. Then I discovered coaching and I realized, oh my God, there's tools. I can look at ADHD like as being left-handed, and instead of keep trying to write with the right hand and sitting me in the right hand desk, I can all of a sudden, right? Like I can all of a sudden like get a left-handed or you know anyway. So I started implementing tools for um, coaching, and all of a sudden, like the timers that I'm telling you about, like setting boundaries, like realizing that I work best in the morning and setting blocking time off, planning different things like that. But I realized that that was not good enough. So then I started with meds, and then I started with actually group coaching where I was the student, and then one-on-one coaching. And then I realized I was trying to tell the coach like what to do. I was like, maybe I should help other people. When I'm trying to tell them what to do, maybe I should tell other people. And anyways, I went on a podcast actually with Tracy Atsuka for that was my very first podcast ever. That was February of 2021, where I told my story. That was the first time I told my story about being diagnosed with ADHD because I had such shame with it, and I didn't want people to see me less of a doctor because I was working so hard to maintain as a doctor. Anyways, from there, a lot of people emailed me and they were like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you talked about it," and they were telling me that there was a lot of people in the healthcare system that had ADHD. And so that's where I decided, maybe there's a need there. Maybe I should pursue this. So then I went and I got certified as a life coach, and then I got certified as an ADHD clinical coach too. So, like again, I wasn't looking to get more titles or do more things, but it was my pain that then led me to realize that others might be in pain. And as I started to heal from that bleeding wound, so to say, I then could turn around and help others to do the same. And I figured there was only so many patients I could see by myself, but that if I help the people who are seeing their own patients, like that's why I was helping physicians or I'm helping physicians, then impactively I could massively help and make more of an impact, right? Because then their life starts to change. All of a sudden, you feel like, okay, I got tools, I can do this. And then my program was not just for physicians who had ADHD, but really most of us felt like we had ADHD because most of us weren't sleeping, most of us were not eating well, most of us were not doing all the things that could distract us or make us feel like a hot mess sometimes. And so I opened it up. And yeah, in the last year and a half, and I called it overachieve because most of us are overachievers. And it was just a better way than saying you're underachieving, because most of us, we get in trouble not for the not closing the notes, for not doing the administrative part, which is needed, right? But it's not, that's not how patients define you. Like, they see you as a person who's listening to them, they see you as a person who took the time to ask questions that nobody had asked them before, and you finally got the diagnosis. We tend to be a little bit more intuitive, and I think that gets us to question ourselves sometimes, because we're not even sure why I had to ask you what I asked you, and maybe somebody else wouldn't have asked it. But with ADHD, you have that extra sense, because we're so used to having so much thing coming at us that we have to filter things. And it's weird because it's almost a misnomer, because people think, oh, they can't concentrate. We way over concentrate, just not on the right things at the right time, and that can get us into trouble. So I think for me, family medicine was perfect because I never knew what was coming through the door. I didn't know if it was going to be a kiddo, or a pregnant lady, or like a teenager, or a person with diabetes or high blood pressure. But with overachieve life coaching, because I wasn't using my medicine per se part of it, but I was using more tools. It got me to play and to meet with like physicians all throughout the United States, and a lot of them from Canada, and I have clients even from Europe. So it's just been so amazing for me. I've been able to help like 70 to 80 physicians in the last year and a half through my course. And I do mainly group coaching because it's the community where that is so magical, when you can just come and everybody's on their own journey. And so I do have a membership afterwards. So because if I tell you, come spend with me a year, you're going to be like, you're crazy, I don't have enough time. You wanting me to commit for how long? But if I tell them, come spend with me three months, um, then you start to grow and see. Obviously, I want you to outgrow me, but I don't want you to feel like you're behind. If this is for the first time, you're finding tools that are starting to work for you, you can come and stay as long as you need to. And I'm constantly trying, like right now, my next adventure is becoming trauma certified, so that people never feel like I'm gaslighting them because I'm just trying to give you advice on what worked for me. Like, I want to show you all these tools, and then you pick and try the executive ones, emotional tools, dysregulation tools, planning tools, different tools, and then you see which one works the best. But a lot of us sometimes don't realize that the way we react to things are because of something that might have happened to us. And sometimes we go at it and ask you, what's wrong with you? Instead of asking, well, what happened to you? Why are you acting that way? It could have been that, again, they might have not been aware they had ADHD and they were trying their best, but they always missed the mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes with the shame, because a lot of times when we get asked what's wrong with you, we automatically think, oh, something's wrong with me. Not what's the word? Remembering that these people don't understand the journey you're going through. Maybe they're going through a different journey that we don't understand, and they just don't phrase it correctly. You don't know their background, so there's a lot of judging that automatically seems to be played in the phrasing of the questions, and that's unfortunate. And I think that's why a lot of us don't seek help with whatever it is, ADHD, fear of public speaking, getting directions on a road trip, whatever it is. A lot of us don't seek help because we think something's wrong if we do, or we're the only ones, or somebody once said, "What's wrong with you?" and now you think you're broken, or we've grown up with the mindset, we've been programmed, you know, No one needs to know about what you're going through. No one wants to hear about it. Just keep it quiet, hush hush. You know, what do you say to people? And it's not a negative thing towards the people that say that, because sometimes they just don't understand. So where they're coming from could be just as negative of a place as what we have. So, I'm not trying to throw stones. It's just the way we're all programmed. But what do you say to people to help them reach out and understand? Hey, I'm not the only one going through this. There are people to help. There are tools out there. A lot of things. Um, there's so much resources out there that we don't even look for. We don't try to look for, because we keep ourselves in a self-enclosed bubble. Not even not even counting the pandemic we just went through.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. Especially in the healthcare profession, like, and I'm trying to change that. I'm very vocal. I'm trying to change that question because in the healthcare profession, it's mental health. Like, while they teach us to help others, like part of the questionnaire to apply for your medical license asks you if you have a mental condition, da, 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 like, and depending on what you answer there, they might not give you a medical license, right? And so how do you answer that? Do you answer no because you're taking medication and therefore it's not considered a problem, or do you answer yes and you're not taking medication because if you take medication they might judge you, and so this is something that we're trying to change so that they don't ask those type of questions, you know because that can lead somebody to not get help. But at the same time, realizing that shame, like you were saying earlier, is an emotion that is not very helpful. I Renee Brown describes it as kind of like being a cancer, like or a mass. And if you're sitting in shame, you're just not going to tell anybody anything because you feel like they're going to be judging you on things, right? Versus if you feel guilty of something, you might tell somebody about it. And and with shame, it's like you're wrong, you're broken. With guilt, the behavior is wrong and needs to change. And so you can see how it's easier if you're feeling guilt to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I just screamed at my kid. Da, 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 da. I feel like I'm the worst mom. Versus with shame, you're like, you don't tell anybody because you don't want everybody to know how bad of the worst mom you are, right? And so instead of seeking tools on how to learn to communicate with your kiddo or blah, 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 you sit in there. Versus if you felt guilty and you told your friend, I can't believe I did this, blah 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 blah, your friend might say, oh yeah, I did that too. I get so overwhelmed when five things are coming at once. Again, not to excuse them, but now you're at least having a conversation. Now you're at least in like finding solution mode versus shutdown mode where you can't even like tell anybody anything, right? So emotions can be used as a compass, like to realize that, do I like where I'm at? If you do, great, keep going. If you don't, what can I change? Like, what needs to change? Like, if I keep saying that family is the most important thing, okay, where's that on your calendar? How come you don't have anything blocked off for your family vacation or blocked off for the time you read your kid's book or whatever? Like, again, I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying, like, if we are trying to be in alignment and we're trying to talk about intentions, like, where do we set it up so that it can work? And if you do think like, 3 times a week is needed, 5 minutes is needed, whatever, you get to decide on purpose. But I had to realize that I was the most important patient in the room and that I had to put my oxygen first. And that's so counterintuitive to what they teach us. Like for us, they teach us like you die for your patient. And like literally some people have. Like some people could be having a heart attack and they're still seeing their patient. Like and that's unfortunate because if you take care of yourself first, you show up 90% instead of 20% charge. Like, what a difference, what a benefit for your patient if you're 90% charge instead of 20% charge, right? And so now I realize that self neglect is there if you're not doing your basic self-care, which is sleeping, which is resting, which is taking a break, taking a lunch. Like now I realize it, and I mean I was almost 40 when I started to realize that, and it was weird, but it's so important to realize that asking for help is the bravest thing that you could ever do, because if we don't ask, 100% of the time the answer is always going to be no, because nobody knew that that's what you needed. Versus if you ask for help, now you have a 50% chance that you might get what you need, or you might get the lesson or be a lot closer to what you need, because at least now you voiced it and somebody else, you don't know, right? Because we're a community, so you might ask somebody and that person might say, well, I don't know, but I know this person who might know, or and so again, when you put it out there in the universe, like the universe will send it back to you if you really want it, if you voiced it out, if you said it to somebody. Otherwise, like, nobody can read your mind.
Yeah, 100%, and that can work for you and against you. If you're going around, oh, I've got this, I'm broken, I'm just gonna stay in my corner, then the universe is gonna give you that. But if you voice it out, like you said, and it may take 2 or 3 or 17 people or tries or connections, but you'll get it. Um, like you said, I love the example you gave of, I mean, I don't know, but I know this person who knows this person, and I heard they had great results with XYZ, or here's a great book, read this chapter specifically, and right now there's so many tools. I use YouTube videos all the time with my clients. Hey, watch this YouTube video, ponder it, and then let's talk tomorrow, kind of thing. So many resources out there, literally at our fingertips, literally. And
Yeah.
all you said, we're a worldwide community.
Yeah.
you know, um, I'm coming in from Utah. You're coming in from
Texas.
Texas. And I was talking to someone in Australia last week, and so we're a worldwide community, and it's mind-boggling, but unfortunate that people don't think that anyone knows what they're going through and anyone can help. And there might be some cases, that you may not know the exact journey, but for a bunch of it or pieces of it, there's people that have similar experiences. They can, this is what helped me during this part. And if that gives you a piece to your puzzle and this person gives you a piece to your puzzle, pretty soon you can start seeing the picture come into place. But and I love that. And then overachieve, um like you said, self-care. I've learned, it was a hard lesson, but self-care is not selfish. You know,
Exactly.
so when you take care of yourself, now I'm not saying being lazy, but when you
No.
take care of yourself, then you can give more.
Exactly.
You, if you invest in you, then you have more to give and to serve others. Then that will help them invest in themselves to give in more. Um, like you coaching your clients, now they have more to go help their clients, and a big ripple effect. So a lot of these pieces tie together, and and excuse me, shaming, is not something that we need to do. You know, having ADHD, I I sometimes I have a little bit of a slur or stutter or whatever, but so that's part of me. That's personality of me. If you look at it properly, it can change your life just by the way you look at it. And and you can use that as a tool to help you become a better person again. I'm left-handed. That's I love being left-handed. Um, Even though a lot of people tease me and give me crap, and now it's for fun and play and not rude and stuff, but I've been able to take that and say, heck yeah, I'm proud of who I am. And that I've seen impact others to be able to step into that light of theirs, whatever that is for them, and turn it from shame to fame for them, kind of thing, in their mind.
Yeah, I love that. What comes to mind as you were talking was this: the world wants more of you, like just you. Like we are often in a quest of how can I be more different, more different, more different. But when you start to realize like what lights you up and what makes you just like be so excited about your day and what is your purpose here, like the possibilities just become endless because you're walking and living in alignment with your values and with what lights you up. And like for some person it might be dancing, for another person it might be singing, and for some people it might be speaking, and for others people they might be writers, right? And I used to think I had to be all the things. And in my mind, I think I wasn't closing my notes because I kept telling my brain that I'm not a good writer. I'm a very slow writer. But like, I remember my coach asked me, "So how many writing classes did you fail?" And I was like, "Well, none." And they're like, "So how the hell do you make the correlation of not being a good writer with?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. My brain just tells me that, right?" So then I realized I was a good speaker, and I was like, "Well, why can't I get a dragon where I can talk into it and it can type for me? Or why can't I get a scribe and they can type for me? Since I love talking to my patients and they can write what I'm saying." Right? Like we have to realize how can the world accept me fully, but they're not going to accept you until you accept yourself fully. Until I got out of my own brain of like, no, I can't close my notes because I'm a bad writer. Not until I was able to be like, okay, well, I'm not a bad writer. Even if I was, how can I go around the writing part that would make sense for me? And not necessarily me comparing myself to like what that person or that person or that person is doing, and realizing that sometimes in society we are told we only have to do it one specific way. But when you do it your way that lights you up, that makes you, then all of a sudden we think outside the box and we create better systems for other people's. We question the status quo. Just because it's always been this way, it doesn't mean it has to be this way. And as family medicine physicians, like usually they say you're supposed to work 5 days a week, 8 to 5, blah 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 blah. Well, I will be happy to tell you that in the last year I was working 10-hour shifts, and I had a Thursday off, and now starting in February I will be working. I will have Monday and Tuesday off, and then I actually work like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like, so why can't I reinvent the way things are? And then you don't have to do it that way. But then four other physicians said, I'll take that schedule too. That sounds fun. And so why not? Like, why not be willing to ask for what would make sense for you? And and if you don't ask, you won't get, right? And but the world wants more of you. So that's what I wanted to say. So yes, what would have happened if you decided, oh, my stutter is gonna prevent me from sharing all my gifts with the world? Well, like how many people's lives would not have been impacted because of that?
Yeah, and to your point, my own is one of the biggest lives that have been impacted. And because of me starting my show here and getting on it, and not having the best camera and not having the best microphone and not knowing all the things at first, and hiccups and technical difficulties and whatever, but because I persevered and kept going, you know my son saw that, and he's got his own YouTube channel now, and so that right there, makes it worth it every minute. Just that example, And as a father, it gets me more excited about watching him grow than myself grow, because I I get so much joy knowing that he can see that vision too and step into who he is, and that's going to be such a big impact later on in his life and everyone he connects with too.
Yeah. So there's a book called that's by Oprah and Dr. Perry that is called What Happened to You, and it talks about transgeneration trauma sometimes, where sometimes we're walking around with some limiting beliefs, but then when you consciously decide, no, I'm going to be, yes, I have fear, but I'm going to be excited and I'm going to go forth anyways. And yes, I might mess it up, but like nobody walked out of the womb, right? Like we fell multiple times trying to walk. Eventually we got it, right? So like understanding that yes, we might suck at it at the beginning, but as we persevere, if this is what you want to do, you'll eventually get better, right? And so like you said, the change that happens because you decided, yes, I'm going to try this, and then your kid says, oh, I can be brave too, I can try that too. And it might not seem like anything, but it's like a world of difference that can happen. And then he doesn't have that limiting belief that no, I don't have the best this, the best that, da, 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 da. Like you start with what you have and then the rest will come.
Absolutely. And I just had a thought, but I lost it for a second, but it'll come back to me. But oh yeah, what we were talking about earlier is making our own decisions and putting our own definitions. If if you ask me what happened to you, automatically we think that's a negative thing. But we have the power to take that positively. What happened to me? Well, I got this and I got this coaching and I went through this, but because of that, it got me this, and turn it positive. And what happened to me, let me tell you about it. You know, instead of the, oh, what happened to you, you could turn it into, that's so exciting. Tell me about the great things you did, basically. Re rephrase, reword that question in your mind. So
Retell your story.
yeah, retell your story and put that new definition with that. So when someone says, what happened to you, you get excited. Well, let me show you how I learned how to do this, and the connections and the people I met and the experiences I had. You know, turn it into a positive thing and be happy about it. You don't have to pretend everything was butterfly and roses through all your experiences, but look for the positive that came out of those experiences too. I went through these trials, but because of that, I met this person who helped me with this, and I grew so much over here, and now I'm doing this, and so turn what happened to me in something good, and
And
you have the
sometimes,
power.
and sometimes, sorry to interrupt you, but I want to say sometimes addressing the elephant in the room head on before somebody else says it is the fastest way for you to retell your story from your lens. Because, like I got asked, I only had one medical interview, and I got asked by that person. At that point, I didn't know she was the dean who was asking me that question. But she asked me, what are you going to do if you don't get into med school this year? No, she said, what are you going to do since you're not getting into med school this year? Like she made it a statement, like I wasn't getting in. And, maybe most people would have been like, oh my God. But what I said was like, well, I realize that it is a privilege to be here, to have even this one opportunity to be here, and have this conversation about the possibility of me being a student in your school. But what's going to happen if I don't get into med school this year is going to be that you're going to see me here next year, and then the year after that, and then probably the year after that, probably like 7 or 8 times or 10 times. I don't know how many times you're going to see me here every year. And every time you see me here, you're going to see me growing, whether it's for my test, probably because my test is probably something that you're questioning about right now, that it's not the highest that it should have been compared to everybody else. But English is my second language, and I didn't learn English till I was 10. So that could have an effect, but that doesn't mean that that's what's going to keep me from me trying to pursue my dream. And what you're probably going to see is me continuing to be a science teacher meanwhile, because education, um, one day when I'm a doctor, I'm going to be able to educate my patients. So education, I'm still going to continue to improve. I need to be able to have communication with those patients in all levels of life with simple wording. So if I can get through to high school students, then I'm pretty sure I could get through anybody later on. And I said, but if you look at my rest of my, I said I was on probation my first year of college. I almost lost my scholarship, but then I learned that if I got into groups and studied, like, that would keep me accountable. And then, as you can see, my grades went up and up and up, and I graduated with like a 3.7 GPA. So if you give me the opportunity, I will outwork anybody here. But so I didn't make it mean anything that she told me I wasn't getting in, but I used it as a conversation to be like, yes, I realize that my score might be like my MCAT score might be the reason I don't get in, but that doesn't define me as a human being. That doesn't define how much work I'm going to do. Like, one day of me taking a damn test does not define the rest of my life, right? And if anything, this is what I want you to take away from our conversation today, that you have a choice, that you have a decision, and that you can retell your story. And sometimes the most shameful thing, or the most embarrassing thing, or the worst thing that could have happened to you might be the best thing that could have happened to you, because you realize you're human, and we're not perfect, and we're never meant to be perfect in this world, but somebody else probably went through something similar, and that shouldn't dissuade you from pursuing whatever your passion and purpose. And because then, if it does, then you've given away your dream to somebody else, for somebody else's opinion of you. Your own opinion of you should be the one that is really important.
Absolutely. And knowing that you have that power, to decide what your opinion is, to decide whose other, if any, opinions you'll place any value on, and what you pursue, professionally and personally. Um, where can people learn more about your 12-week coaching program, and can they connect with you?
Sure. Yeah, they're welcome to come to my website. It's called ADHD-lifecoach.com. They can send me an email through there, overachieve with ADHD at gmail.com, or through the contact there. I also have a podcast that is called Beyond ADHD, A Physician's Perspective. And I bring anybody there because it's my perspective. So as long as they're giving me tools about which way to help ourselves and human beings, they can come. But right now, I'm only coaching physicians and healthcare professionals, but that doesn't mean I can't come and give a talk to your school if you know, your elementary wants to learn, or you want me to train your teachers, or you want me to come and be a guest coach, or run a workshop or a retreat or something like that. Because at the end of the day, we all can benefit from executive function. We all can benefit from emotional regulation tools. And I've been a guest coach in other people's programs and workshops, to help them, stop the decluttering stuff, stop the self-perfectionist stuff, start the planning. So anything you guys need help with, I'm pretty sure we can figure something out.
Awesome. And like you said earlier, if we don't know, we know someone that does know.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your wisdom and experience. And I'm looking forward to it. Everyone, go to her website, connect with her, and reach out. If you're struggling or know someone that's struggling, or you feel ashamed or anything like that, reach out, please. Us, anybody, reach out, please. And know that there's tools and resources, as always, available, literally, again, at your fingertips. So please reach out. And as always, remember to live your passion, fulfill your purpose, and explore those possibilities. We'll see you next time.